Hi, and welcome to The Chase, a limited series on the Shallow End podcast feed that tells the story of a collector's successful chase of a card, set, or player run. Today's guest is Brandon, flagship Chrome collector on Instagram. He's a former set collector. He says former because the amount of resources and energy it took to put into the sorts of sets he liked to build consumed all of his hobby bandwidth. I'm Dave Schwartz, and in this episode, you're going to hear about a set build that took Brandon more than a decade to finish. I don't want to spoil it, but I will say it was one of the coolest set builds I've come across. And it could only be completed by a dedicated collector with a rich history of 1990s baseball cards. Really pleased now to welcome in Brandon on Instagram. He is flagship Chrome collector. Brandon, thank you for being here. I'm excited to talk about your chase today. What is that chase?
Glad to be here today. So my chase is 1997 New Pinnacle Artist Proofs.
Fantastic. Pinnacle, a legendary 90s brand. For the listeners who maybe don't know about this set, just tell us a little bit more about it. Like, how did you learn about it, and what is it about this chase that got you excited?
Yeah, so I started working on this set back in 2013, maybe even 2012. I mean, it has been quite a while. And back in those days, before I really started focusing on collecting flagship Chrome parallels, which is what I collect now, I collected a lot of 90s cards. And so I was really active in a lot of the message boards and the 90s forums and that sort of thing. And I wanted to find a set that was challenging yet affordable. Even back then, some of the rarer cards had really started to creep up in price. And so I picked this set because I wanted to pick up something that looked great, that I could accomplish, and wasn't something that everybody was running after. But every time you showed somebody a scan of one, they were like, "Oh man, that's a great looking card."
But Pinnacle had a lot of different cards, a lot of different designs. Just sort of describe the look of the set in particular that you chased.
I think a lot of people by now, or at least who were collecting 20 years ago, are familiar with the Dufex technology. It's been somewhat replicated by some of the card companies today. In fact, if you look at one of the one of the inserts in 2025 Topps flagship actually has, like, I think it's the all Topps insert, has this shimmery kind of background to it. And that all goes back to Dufex technology, which is this shimmery kind of light and color play background that Pinnacle used on a lot of sets back in the early and mid 90s. I mean, I guess Pinnacle flamed out in 98, so they didn't make it all the way through the 90s. But I think beginning in maybe 93 with the Cooperstown set that they did kind of a special release of, and then seemingly all of their insert sets, or all of their sets that had inserts over the course of the next 5 or 6 years, all had some insert set that was all Dufex related.
So a lot to choose from. The Dufex technology has become, I mean, legendary in a way. Like, there are people who are our age who are nostalgic for it. They remember it. So when you started to chase it around 2013, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
How did you begin? What was that decision-making process like? Where you thought, you know what, I'm going to get all of it. Was it just with a card or with a player, or did you decide at the beginning, I want to get the whole set?
Oh, I wanted to get the whole set. So I've been a set collector, or at least had been a set collector for most of my life. I had just wrapped up a monster set and was ready for a new challenge. And I can talk about that set all day long too. Maybe we can do that another time. That I had done the 1999 Bowman Chrome International Refractor set, which I could probably, if I had a Griffey 9.5, and I could probably, it probably cost to get that card what I sold the whole set for, I think, these days. But anyway, so I finished that set. I wanted a new set to start working on. I didn't think this one would take as long as it has. Back in those days, the easiest ways to get a lot of cards for set building, there were two. The Beckett Marketplace was one. Burbank sold a ton of stuff on there. That was really where Burbank kind of built their customer base, I feel like, was through Beckett Marketplace. And you could pick up a lot of, and you still can, but you could pick up a lot of pretty much anything you were looking for from Burbank through Beckett back then. And then COMC had just started, and people started, shipping cars to COMC. They had been around for maybe a year or two. And when I found that, between those two sources, I picked up a lot of cards really, really fast.
And then at some point, did it start to slow down after a while?
Yeah. So I looked at this today because I actually have like a spreadsheet with the date I picked up every single card. So through the end of 2013, this is a 200 card set.
Okay.
Through the end of 2013, I was at 151. In 2014, I was at 185. So the last 15 cards took me basically 10 years to pick up.
So you just finished last year.
Yeah, I finished it. I finished it January 5th of this year.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
We're talking about an 11 plus year chase.
Yeah. And look, I guess to get a little granular about the set. So it's a 200 card set. If you're familiar with it, you'll know that there are 3 background colors that come with this set. There's a red background, there's a blue background, and there's a green background. 125 reds, 50 blues, 25 greens. By and large, they kind of follow the kind of the old Beckett. You know how Beckett used to have the commons, semi-stars, and stars like categories. So I guess they decided back in '97 the reds were more of the common players. The blues were kind of your semi-stars, and the greens were like the really big stars. Now, when you look back on it, like there's some players who should have been in different categories, and even back then, some of it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like Barry Bonds was a blue instead of a green. But when I started making that set, and you'll still see this when you see cars listed in this set, people thought the blues were rarer than the reds and the greens were rarer than the blues. And it's just not the case. They just had different backgrounds, but all of the cards were 1 in 39, which is about 1 in 2 boxes. And none of them are any scarcer than any of the others. There's no short prints in the set. So if you're looking for one of these cards, keep that in mind when somebody lists one for a green for a lot more than a red. If it's a similarly valuable player, the card should be about the same price.
And as you were gathering, you had the first 185 in the first 2 years or so.
Yeah.
Were you grading them or keeping them in binders or boxes?
I don't grade. It's something that I've struggled with it because I've thought about doing it just for the value. But I keep most of my cards in binders. I feel like binders are the best way to display your collection. They're the best way to enjoy your collection. There are, if you get the right kind of sheets, they're not going to damage your cards. And it's kind of brings me back to my childhood. There's no better way to kind of share your cards or look through your cards than flipping through a binder. So even my entire set, and really most of my current cards I collect, regardless of how valuable they are, most of them are still in binders.
So I'm sorry to cut you off. Well, I was just
No, go
curious
ahead.
what the last 9 to 10 years were like as you were trying to find those last 15 cards. Was it just sort of parking yourself on ComC and eBay and waiting, or were there other ways that you did?
Yeah, a lot of it was that. A lot of it was I took maybe a 3.5 year break, so that was part of it. Just from collecting all together, and kind of got back into it on the tail end of COVID. But I've always been, or at least tried to be very patient when it comes to buying singles, making sure getting the card you want for the right price. And I learned this through putting that international refractor set together. Like, there will always be another one. It doesn't matter how rare the card is. Another one is going to pop up. You'll have an opportunity to buy it. So don't overpay just to get the card you want. And some of these I picked up in the last few years. They sat on eBay as buy it nows for a really long time. I could never get anybody to negotiate on them. And, lo and behold, one eventually pops up and you get it at an auction for half of what it was listed for. So part of the fun actually is getting the card for what they're actually worth, and not, I probably could have finished this set a while back, except for maybe one card, the last one, but just being smart about it.
That's what I'm dying to know is what was your 200th card? What was the last card that you?
It was the Ryan Sandberg, and I've got a story on it. So in those first 2 years, I actually had one. And in my again, when I was still learning about the set, I thought back then the greens were rarer. They were shorter printed and they were harder to get. And so I had a Sandberg and I traded it for a Maddox. And that was back. I wrote this down. So I did that in December of 2013. And I looked on Card Ladder today to see how many Sandbergs had popped up since then. 6. and 3 of them were this year.
What? That is random.
Yeah, which is crazy. But yeah, I think 3 of them have been this year. So, or in the last year. But I've never seen one at auction before I picked mine up. One actually went for auction a few weeks after I bought mine, which I bought it at a buy it now for a lot more than I thought it was worth. And then when the one went up for auction, it sold for probably $80 more than I paid for mine. But yeah, so it was just a ghost of a card. Sandberg collectors or rabid collectors, he doesn't have, because of the trajectory of his career, the end of his career was right when like really rare cards and the real premium cards started to be made. So he doesn't have a ton of like really, really cool 90s cards. And this is one of them. And so the Sandberg collectors just jump all over him when they see him.
That makes sense. One thing that I really like that you said, and if you wouldn't mind saying a little bit more about it, you talked about where, if you miss a card, it's going to come back up at some point. Have you always been just a disciplined person, or did you gradually learn that discipline as you collected?
I think I learned that as my wallet started thinning out. I mean, this was I learned this a long time ago, but not everybody has unlimited resources, and I know there are a lot of people in this hobby, either people who are getting into it, or some that have been into it for a long time, that have buyer's remorse. A lot of people have buyer's remorse over things. They overpay for things. It's an addictive hobby. And you can get over your skis if you're not very, very careful and disciplined. as easy as it is to buy things these days. Pre-eBay, I mean, I guess a lot of your listeners remember the days before eBay, where you actually had to go to a card shop or a card show, or you had to know somebody who had a card to actually find that, get that Jose Canseco rookie card you were looking for, or the Cal Ripken rookie card. And, cards would come and go through shops, but it was challenging to find things that you wanted a lot of times. But now you can pretty much get whatever you want, whenever you want, if you're willing to pay for it. But if you're like me, you've got thousands of cards on your wish list. And so you've got to be smart about what you're doing. You've got to be patient. Do not overpay. And another thing, and this is a bit of an aside from this set, but I want collectors to remember that when new sets come out, even if you're like a super collector of a player or a team, if you're looking for that, the 101s and the F5s or whatever, they're obviously they're very, very rare, and you might not have an opportunity to pick those up but once. So if you see it, you've got to be smart about what you're willing to pay. But if you're looking at cards that are in that of 10 to 25 to 50 range, I bought so many of those over the years, I can assure you, you will always find what you're looking for if you're smart and patient about it.
That's great. I wish we had more time. I do have one last question for you to wind down, and that is, there are player collectors, there are set collectors, there are type collectors. For somebody who's not a set collector like yourself, how would you describe the satisfaction of completing a set? Whether it was, you mentioned the international refractors from Bowman, this new Pinnacle set. What's it like when the journey ends and you finish the set?
It's almost more of a relief than it is joy. No, it's a little bit of both. Because it can be exhausting. Especially looking for this last card. I had 5 cards left in this set for 8 years. And it's exhausting to check eBay you're going to look in every single day for those cards you need. So part of it is just a relief, but it's pretty awesome to flip through that set, especially a tough set, and to know that there probably aren't that many complete sets out there of this particular set in the world. I mean, it's probably not the only one, but I don't know of any others. And that's pretty cool. And it's just a really unique thing. And it's something to be proud of. I will say one more thing about set collecting before we go, which is why I got out of it. It is a true hobbyist sport. Do not get into set collecting if you are looking to get ROI, because you got to pick up too many cards that just aren't worth anything to finish those sets that you're paying for that nobody else wants. And so it is for pure hobby love. It is not to make money or to recover your investment down the road. It rarely will pay off in that regard. So that's just more kind of practical advice to collectors.
Thank you. Very much appreciate that. And Brandon at Flagship Chrome Collector on Instagram, thanks for your time and thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.